Chapter 4. General Account of Alphabets. Astle wrote, Org Prague. Writ, the characters and alphabets of all the countries east of Persia have no connection with, or relation to, the Phoenician or its derivatives, except only where the conquests of the Mohammedans have introduced the use of the Arabic letters. The Sanskrit characters are the prototype of the letters used in India, namely, of the sacred characters of Thibet, the Kashmirian, Bengalese, Malabaric and Tamil, the Sinhalese, the Siamese, the Mahrattan, the Konkani, and c. The Tangutic or Tartar characters, and the Sanskrit, seem to have proceeded from the same source, as they are similar in their great outlines, but whether the former is derived from the latter, or the latter from the former, is not easy to determine. Again on page 49, there are several alphabets used in different parts of Asia, which are entirely different not only from the Sanskrit, and all those proceeding from that source, but also from Phoenician, and all its derivatives. The characters and alphabets may not be connected, but the sharing of words between the Celtic, Roman, and Sanskrit is what has led scholars to believe in diffusion from the Orient, which I suspect is inverted. I demonstrated this affinity in the Holy Sailors. Click the image. You will see it in words like God, where in Celtic it is Dia, in Sanskrit it is Deva, and in Latin it is Deus. A priest would be Sacred/Sacard in Celtic, Socrates in Sanskrit, and Sacerdos in Latin. A few words picked up through commerce is not a big deal. But that is not the case. They share tons of words. The Spirit World series is a must-read for learning this ancient system and exploring the cultural diffusion responsible for it. Astle observed the Pegu language, the Bada characters used on the island of Sumatra, and the Barman or Bowman characters used in some parts of Pegu that are different from those aforementioned, then wrote, IB, the names and powers of the letters, of which these alphabets are composed, are entirely different from the Phoenician, or those derived from them, and to assimilate their forms is impossible. Indeed, it is not easy to conceive that the 50 Sanskrit letters could be taken from the alphabet of the Phoenicians, which originally consisted of 13 characters. However difficult Astle thought it was to conceive the Sanskrit letters being taken from the alphabet of the Phoenicians, Colonel Wilford did just that and recognized that the Sanskrit alphabet, when stripped of double letters, and the ones unique to it, has the same 16 letters as the letters of the Pelasgi, Asiat. Res. Volume 10, page 152, the Sanskrit alphabet, after striking off the double letters, and such as are used to express sounds peculiar to that language, has a surprising affinity with the old alphabets used in Europe, and they seem to have been originally the same. Lemuel Dole Nelmy published an essay towards an investigation of the origin and elements of language and letters, in which he wrote, page 78, the Pelasgic symbols, or letters, were only 13 in number, and are said to have been received by the Etruscans, or rather retained by them, for that people appear to have been of Pelasgic extract. Their symbols are delineated in our plate, and the powers of them are perfectly reconcilable to the powers of our radicals. If you keep reading his essay, which I won't write, you'll see the mistakes that so many of these scholars made, almost all of which are based on presupposing biblical history, which I don't need to digress to prove is nonsense. He was perfectly correct in merely recognizing that the Pelasgic symbols were Etruscan, and that's all he needed to acknowledge, because the Pelasgians are Etruscans, not some Abrahamic fantasy descended from a contemporary of Noah, who was also acquainted with the system. I wrote in A Godsacre for Winds of the Soul, the Tamilese language is not derived from any language still in existence. The higher dialect of Tamil has nearly no Sanskrit words or idioms, and tradition claims it consisted of 16 letters, several of which are unique and far from Sanskrit. If Astle was correct, then a 13-letter Etrusco-Phoenician Pelasgic alphabet tells a story that will help you debunk the sea of forgery and lies foisted on us by the loudmouthed attention grifters of the current age, who have plenty to claim, but little evidence to offer. In the following citation, he attributes the Pelasgians to being Greeks. Others claimed the Pelasgians were Syrians. But this is not the case. Astle wrote, IB, page 51, the following alphabets seem to be immediately derived from the Phoenician, namely, the ancient Hebrew, or Samaritan, the Chaldaic, the Bastilian, the Punic, Carthaginian, or Sicilian, the Pelasgian Greek, and its derivatives, which are written in the Eastern manner, from right to left, and the Ionic Greek, written from left to right. This last mentioned branch from the Pelasgic stock is the source from whence not only most of the alphabets of Europe are derived, but also of many others which have been adopted in different parts of Asia and Africa. Astle cited Dionysius of Halicarnassus, but he did not brought up the significant quotes I am about to share, which may indicate he didn't read that portion of DH's work. Dionysius of Halicarnassus wrote, "Indeed, those probably come nearest to the truth who maintain that the Etruscan nation migrated from nowhere else, but was native to the country, as well as, Versilius of Lesbos does not call the people Pelasgians, but Tyrrhenians, Italians. And the same people were called by the rest of the word both Tyrrhenians, Italians, and Pelasgians. By correcting the record of the Pelasgians being Italians, Etruscans, then the source of all the alphabets of Europe becomes Italy, not Greece. This is how it's possible that Etruscan only had 12 letters in its earliest form while Tamil, a language that is claimed to descend from something else that no longer exists, had 16 letters originally. This is exactly what one could expect given the nature of civilization, art, religion, mythology, rites, archaeology, phenotypes, and everything else covered in my work. The oldest inscription in India only dates to the 3rd century BC, Mangulam inscriptions. We have much older inscriptions in Italy. Continuing with Astle, IB, the Chaldaic may be divided into the square Hebrew, the round Hebrew, and the more modern, or running hand Hebrew of the rabbins. The alphabets derived from the Chaldaic are the Syriac, Estrangelo, and Mendean, the ancient and the modern Arabic. The Estrangelo characters are descended from the ancient Syriac. Some have supposed that the Brahmin characters are derived from them, and that they were introduced into India in the time of Genghis Khan, but letters were known in India long before the reign of that prince, and these suppositions are not supported by proofs. From the ancient Arabic alphabet are derived those of the Kufic, the Mauritanic, Moors, not the ancient Maori, the African or Saracen, and the Moorish. The Persian and Turkish are generally allowed to have been derived from the modern Arabic, though authors are not entirely agreed as to the derivation of the former. The ancient Maori were not Moors. Moor is a Phoenician word meaning great, lord, and prince. This is the origin of Mars. We also see this root in Latin words pertaining to sea, mare, and in names of princes and the like in Britain. Italians still use the name Maro. The Berbers, or Numidians, as far as this system is concerned, are an offshoot of the Phoenicians, who I suspect are the Etruscans. They spoke Punic, which is Sicilian Phoenician. The Arabic/Sub-Saharan African influence in North Africa doesn't occur until the 7th century AD. There will be some checkmate information that debunks the historical narrative the status quo teaches, so keep reading. Become a member to access the rest of this article. If you've never been a member and want a comped month to see if my work is a good fit for you, follow these simple instructions.